The Black Cat by William J. Wintle. If there was one animal that Sidney disliked more than another, it was a cat. Not that he was not fond of animals in a general way, for he had a distinct affection for an aged retriever that had formerly been his. But somehow a cat seemed to arouse all that was worst in him. It always appeared to him that if he had passed through some previous stage of existence, he must have been a mouse or a bird, and thus have inherited, so to speak, an instinctive dread and hatred for the enemy of his earlier days. The presence of a cat affected him in a very curious fashion. There was first of all a kind of repulsion, the idea of the eyes of the animal being fixed on him, the thought of listening for a soundless tread, and the imagined touch of the smooth fur. All this made him shudder and shrink back. But this feeling quickly gave place to a still stranger fascination. He felt drawn to the creature that he feared, much as a bird is supposed, but quite erroneously, to be charmed by a snake. He wanted to stroke the animal, and to feel its head rubbing against his hand, and yet at the same time, the idea of the animal doing so filled him with a dread passing description. It was something like that morbid state in which a person finds actual physical pleasure in inflicting pain on himself. And then there was sheer, undisguised fear. Pretend as he might, Sidney was in dreadful fear when a cat was in the room. He had tried and tried time and again to overcome it, but without success. He'd argued from the well-known friendliness of the domestic cat, from its notorious timidity, and from its actual inability to do any serious harm to a strong and active man. But it was all of no use. He was afraid of cats, and it was useless to deny it. At the same time, Sidney was no enemy to cats. He was the last man in the world to hurt one. No matter how much his slumber might be disturbed by the vocal efforts of a lovesick marauder on the roof in the small hours of the morning, he would never think of hurling a missile at the offender. The sight of a half-starved cat, left behind when its owner was away in the holiday season, filled him with a pity near akin to pain. He was a generous subscriber to the Home for Lost Cats. In fact, his whole attitude was inconsistent and contradictory. But there was no escape from the truth. He disliked and feared cats. Probably this obsession was to some extent fostered by the fact that Sidney was...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?